Hi, I'm Mike Harrington, and in 2014, I embarked on a health journey resulting in my losing over 200 pounds on my own. Since then, I've been sharing my story and have become an advocate for healthy living. Welcome to Mike Inspires Me, a podcast show about health, wellness, and amazing people to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. I've got no one to blame but my fat self. Those are some lyrics from a song by a band called They Might Be Giants called, I believe the song's called The Biggest One. I always remember that line because it's kind of funny. Being a person myself who has struggled with weight majority of my adult life, I began to believe that. And today I want to talk about where that personal responsibility lies. It is your fault, isn't it? I mean, that's what society would have us believe. I see a lot of health and fitness gurus out there who really push that personal responsibility. And some of it I do agree with. There is a lot about that personal responsibility. But is it your fault? Is it your fault? Now, in defense, I think many of us would say a lot of factors. Well, Mike, geez, I come from a family of people whose genetics, we're bigger people. And certainly you'll see in some families, in my own family, people who struggle with their weight. And yes, there are people out there who very easily can put on weight. And just like, people, you've got that skinny friend who can eat anything and you hate that person because, my gosh, they can just go to a Chinese buffet every day and eat and eat and eat. And we're all made up different. And I also precaution folks who don't struggle with their weight to just eat anything you want, because even though you don't put on fat, you still could be getting health issues from not eating food that's good for your, nutritionally good for your body. But let's talk about this. I've seen over the years a lot, or heard comments, from folks to tell me about that self-control aspect. Well, you just need to learn to portion control, or you need to learn to get an exercise routine. And you'll hear me talk about some of those things, and they certainly are good, helpful advice pieces. But there's a fine line here between where this personal responsibility lies and what the real true problem is. And it's something I often struggle with myself. You might have heard me at some point talk about, I don't remember if I mentioned it in an article or one of my podcasts earlier, but there was a USA Today article that talked about weight isn't always within your control. It was part of the headline. And that triggered me because a lot of what I talk about in what I promote is teaching people to empower themselves and make some small changes. And so when I saw this, I wrote to a couple of esteemed health professional friends of mine and to get their opinion of what we saw in this article. So I sent it to them. And what I explained was, and what I fear is, when a news media outlet like USA Today puts something out there with a headline, weight isn't always within your control. That was only part of the headline. I fear that people are going to look at that and just say to themselves, oh, well, there's really nothing I can do. I don't always have control over my weight. And I'm not so sure I completely agree with that. We'll get into that for a minute before you start getting upset. Trust me, I know a lot about both sides of this, and I've been on both sides of this. But what the couple of these guys said to me was, well, Mike, you got to look at it from the standpoint. Now, bear in mind, this article was written around prioritizing obese individuals for getting the COVID-19 vaccination and saying that because COVID-19 risk is higher for folks who are obese, because obesity conditions, comorbidities, they're called, other conditions that come along with it, diabetes, high blood pressure, yada, 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 put you at a higher risk for getting COVID-19. We know that. We've been hearing it over and over in the headlines. And what this article was attempting to do was kind of address what was happening here. Folks who were upset about these obese individuals getting the COVID-19 vaccine ahead of other people because they felt that fat people, and I'm sorry to use those words, I just use it that way, fat people are responsible for their own health conditions. They're making themselves fat. And so what this article was attempting to go was explain that, well, it's not always within your control. And there were doctors here talking about that. Now, back, because I kind of segued, back to what my health professional friends were saying when I sent them this article is, well, there are a lot of nuances and factors here that are outside of people's control, right? Let's just talk about the food industry. These are things I'm well aware of, okay? The food industry. And we could do a whole segment about this, and I'm not going to get into it today, but let me just summarize some of what we talked about and my thoughts on it. I think we all know there's a lot of junk food out there, right? I mean, let's just face it. And it tastes great. And we're biologically attuned to crave things like sugar, salt, and fat for survival. So when we go back in history with our ancestors, okay, the genetic makeup that we have is attuned to eat as much as possible. Why? For survival. Because we didn't always know when our next meal would be if you're living back the way our ancestors did. Now, we're going back a lot of generations, but let's face it, a lot of this genetic makeup has been passed down. And if you look at the way food is today, it's fairly recent that we have so much abundance. I mean, I can walk out my door right now, and you can even be in a rural place and walk down, and there's probably a corner store or a gas station or something, and for $1, buy plenty of calories of a food-like substance. I'm gonna say food, but something to fill my stomach, right? Doesn't matter what it is, but for $1, maybe 50 cents, I can find something in there to eat. It's cheap, it's readily available, and it tastes good. Well, our ancestors didn't have that. We did not have that availability. So when these things came about, and we saw something sweet, maybe some berries on the vine, or I don't know what, just name it, whatever, some fatty, whatever foods, we ate them in large quantities and we fattened up. See, our bodies are made to store fat. In fact, when we get fat, that's a normal function within our bodies. Now, granted, the health consequences of carrying this type of fat for so long are not good, and we're also not so much in times of famine and fatness. Okay, we are constantly under a deluge of food all the time, everywhere, cheap, and we walk into McDonald's, the dollar menu, we anything, easily get food anywhere. Now, If you've got an addiction to those type of foods, which that addiction is being fueled by what your body was made to do in the first place. And so it makes it that much harder. So, geez, Mike, have a little self-control. You don't need to go down to McDonald's. Well, McDonald's and all these other companies spend billions and billions of dollars making sure they're in front of your face all the time. All the time. So perhaps I'm a victim. I mean, geez, I have a problem with my ability with this addiction to food. I've got food around me all the time. I've got, let's go on the other side of the coin. I've got all these things drawing me in. I'm busy all the time, or I'm on the internet all the time, and I've got an addiction to the internet, so I'm not getting outside and exercising. So it's working against me. It's working against me. And this is what we talked about. And so the health professional friends of mine were saying, well, Mike, where does the personal responsibility lie? I mean, when a doctor tells you that you need to lose weight, need to get in an exercise program and eat better, is it his responsibility to ensure that you learn and have the tools that you can to get to the ideal health you should be at? Yes, in some ways. But on the other hand, I think about this, and I think about what my doctor once said to me. Mr. Harrington, you're morbidly obese. Wow. I'd never heard that term before. And this is years ago. And we talked, and I said, well, what can I do to lose weight? He said, well, you need to eat less, get more exercise. Okay. Kind of knew that. A little simplified. Easy steps, right? Eat less. Well, geez, I'm the one who controls my eating. I'll just eat less, right? Exercise, yeah, well, I'm the one that controls that. I'm the one that moves these legs and moves these arms. I'll get outside and I'll run, or I'll hike, or I'll do jumping jacks, right? It's not that simple. It's not that simple because we have a society set up with sort of a catch-22. I don't know the best way to describe it, where we're being sold all of these types of foods and products to make us unhealthy, make us sick. And then they're selling us the solutions on the other side. I'm saying I don't know who this bigger they is, right? We've got all these weight loss pills and weight loss products and surgery and programs to help you lose weight. People are making tons of money. I mean, I'm out here now trying to help folks get healthier. And I'm doing it right now with no profit. Why am I even doing what I'm doing? We'll talk about all that. We understand what my purpose is. Because there are things within your control. There are things you can do. Is it easy? I'm not going to tell you it's easy. But we're going to try to make it easy for you. And that's really what I'm here to do. I struggle with sometimes. I had somebody the other day ask me, Mike, what did you do to lose the weight? And you'd think I would have a simple elevator speech to just tell people. And I do. But it's a longer story. I'm working on trying to simplify. The simple story is, and as you all know, I made lifestyle changes over time. Okay? That's the long and short of it. I didn't get surgery. I didn't take a pill. I changed what I ate. I changed my activity. I changed many aspects of my lifestyle, stress management, sleep, all those things, right? It took time. And it's not a simple answer. And what I'm here to do, and what I'm attempting to help people with, is to break it down into simple steps that you can take so that you're not overwhelmed, that you're not discouraged, and not being bullied by that belief that it's your fault. You are the one that takes personal responsibility for your own actions, but you do need to realize what you're up against all the time. Some of you may know, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, I went to a Chinese buffet with family, and that's something I have to deal with, because you might look at me and you see me and I struggle still, but it's a hard life for somebody who's already been exposed to, who's already used to binge eating, already been down that path. The neural pathways in my brain are still set up where I like to eat to capacity beyond just satiation. And I haven't got too detailed into that, but it's something that, let me just emphasize, health coaches and nutritional doctors and all kinds of folks who teach about eating teach that you should eat to satiation. I'll be honest with you, for me, years I've been doing this, I lost in my mind where that even is. I don't even know what satiation means, to just eat to the point that I'm satiated. All I know is I like to eat till I'm full. And sometimes if I really like it, and if I'm at a buffet, sometimes I like to eat beyond full. Well, you do that enough times, well, what do you get? When you constantly in a surplus of not just calories, but food that's not really giving you much nutrients. And that's kind of the double-edged prong. And so part of the reason we also overeat is it's the food we're eating. Now, our ancestors ate what was in nature, right? There wasn't a corner store. There wasn't a McDonald's. You went out in the woods, you ate whatever there was, leaves and berries and nuts and seeds and animals and eggs. You ate those things. Okay? There was no in between. They weren't processed. They weren't GMO'd. There weren't things in them that lowered the nutritional value and affected your health like they do today. And so it's funny, I talked recently to somebody that was also in the health profession, telling me that they eat so much food. This person had lost a bunch of weight and then says, I can eat and eat and eat. And he was telling me about the garbage they were eating. And I said, well, part of the reason you were still hungry is there was nothing in what you ate. It was full of filling your belly, but there was no nutrients in that to satisfy the functions going on in your body. You need certain things in your body to continue to fuel it, to heal, to repair, to grow, to all these things that your body needs. Now, granted, I like pizza. I eat pizza on a fairly regular basis. Is it good for me? Well, I try to make it a little more healthy. I like the taste of it. And I'm not advocating you only eat for nutrition. Now, you should eat for nutrition, and that should be the main thing you do. But if you want to enjoy a piece of cake, you want to enjoy those things, you got to learn to prioritize, I guess, and say to yourself, I know there are foods I need to survive, to eat, to thrive, to heal, to lose weight, to optimally function, right? But there are times, because of the world in which we're living, you want to succumb to a milkshake or to cookies. You see me post all the time. If you follow my Living Your Best Life Facebook group, I post a lot of jokes about my struggles sometimes, binge eating and cravings. And I give in to them sometimes because they make me happy. And as you've heard me say, I should probably change it, my happiness lies somewhere between broccoli and cookies, and hopefully a little more on the broccoli side, right? That's what you want. Because you need to be putting more into your health so that when it's kind of like a bank account. And actually, I did a talk on this. You got to be putting more into that health savings account so that when you want to take a withdrawal and say, yeah, you know what, I want to eat some brownies, you're at least healthy enough to be able to deal with some of the, the consequences of having foods that may not always be best for your health, but you enjoy. So where does the personal responsibility lie? You are responsible for yourself and your actions, and there are things you can do. I'm not saying not to go get help. If you need help, you need a coach, you need somebody, a health professional to teach you about nutrition, somebody to teach you about better eating, or a coach with getting exercise. Now, I want to emphasize, you want to lose weight, you really need to work on what you're eating. And if you're going to tell me that you're eating healthy, I certainly would, and you're struggling with your weight, I would certainly see a healthcare professional to talk about that. Because if you truly are eating healthy, okay, you're eating right for your body to maintain the best, optimal health, your body and your weight and your, will be in check. And I think there's a lot of confusion out there. I just heard a podcast yesterday talking about the carnivore diet, and it was a doctor that I listened to talking about that. And again, all these diets, all of these things that are out here to profit. Okay, I want you to realize that. I'm not telling you that some of these things don't cost. The reason they're becoming popular, the keto diets and all these other things, and the vegan and all these other things. Okay, and let's not even get into the ethical aspect. I get it. I am mostly plant-based myself, although I do eat meat. But just realize one thing that's going on. Okay, these companies are profiting from us, profiting at our expense of our health, knowing that we struggle, knowing that the world right now is fantastically set up to keep us on a cycle of dieting, gaining weight, dieting, gaining weight. When do you want to get off that cycle, that merry-go-round? You can. You could take a step off and learn to take control yourself. If you need help from somebody to do it, as I said before, certainly seek that help. You can write to me and ask my advice about folks who do it. I can give some limited advice myself. I'm certainly not a trained professional, but I have a lot of experience in this and understanding the bigger problem. The bigger problem is the world in which we live is much different than our ancestors. And that's why today, what was once a biological, normal function to gain weight and crave these things is skewed and screwing our health. Skewed and screwed, right? And that's why we struggle today. It's a very complex issue. And is it your fault? Not entirely. Is it your fault at all? Possibly, in the context that if you are unwilling to make changes that hard, you need to examine what's harder. Living this way with health problems, possibly leading to unhappiness with your life because you can't do the things you want to do or don't feel good about yourself. You're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to change. You will see over time that it's worth it. You can take charge. And if taking charge means asking for help, by all means do it. If you're happy where you are, you're healthy, then that's a great place to be. And certainly I want that for all of you. I hope this topic today has been helpful for you to understand where we are today in terms of whose fault is it, why you're fat. And I hope you weren't taken aback by my sort of bait with it, because my take on it is somewhere in between whose responsibility it is. We certainly are up against a lot, and it's certainly working against us. It's created diseases our ancestors never dreamed would ever happen. But today, there are still things you can do, and there is hope. Hope you're doing well today. Stay healthy and stay awesome. Hey friends, if you haven't heard about Anchor, It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mike Inspires Me podcast. Stay tuned for future episodes and check out some of the past ones you may have missed. For more information on me and my story, go to mikeinspiresme.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Mike Harrington Official and on Twitter at Mike Inspires Me. Stay healthy and stay awesome.